catering in time.
Sure. I got one suggestion though for tomorrow. All right, good evening. Welcome to the City of Sandwich Committee of the Whole meeting. Tonight is Monday, November 3rd. Time being 7 p.m. The meeting's called to order. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderwoman Erickson? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will Clerky please call the roll?
Alderman Arnett.
Here.
Alderman Chan.
Here.
Alderman Danko is absent. Alderwoman Erickson.
Here.
Alderwoman Inman.
Here.
Alderman Ketchum is absent. Alderman Kreinbrink.
Here.
Alderman Robinson.
All right, we have a quorum. We'll move on with a couple items on the mayor's report. I just have two items. The first one is notified by NICOR that on Thursday, November 13th, from 5 to 6 p.m., they'll be offering a free online event on a virtual energy fair. This is focused on tips for saving energy and money during the winter. They have a QR code out on their website, but the address is nicorgas.com/virtual fair. Then the other item is received a letter from the Family Service Agency. And as you know, they serve DeKalb County. It just says the Family Service Agency is proud to share that our Community Action Program has received Promise in Action Award. It's one of the highest national honors that can be presented by a national community action partnership. One of more than 1,000 communities, agencies nationwide, only 2 were recognized this year, and the Family Service Agency is proud to represent DeKalb County with this recognition. Attorney report?
Most of my stuff is already on the agenda, so I'll just address it when we get there.
Okay, we'll say that for next meeting or other items. City clerk report, Denise?
Just a quick report on October 25th was the Halloween walk sponsored by the Chamber. I'd like to thank Lisa Bynes, who's a crossing guard. She helped me, and I had my 2 grandsons helping. And I'd like to thank the police department because we ran out of candy and they came to the rescue. It was a pretty big crowd.
All right, thank you for doing that. I know it was a great event. Good weather, too. All right, city administrator report, Jeff Penman.
Good evening. Just wanted to bring a couple things to your attention for our next meeting on the 17th. We'll have the DeKalb County Visitors Bureau coming. Also, we will bring the Little Rock Creek Watershed Plan for formal approval.
And structure fire, down wires, and gas leaks. Since late July, we've assisted in 33 calls. That's including the one that occurred today. And it allows us to make sure that the first responders are safe and being able to do their job. So just want to give an update on what we've been able to do with that. A couple of items on Saturday, the 25th, EMA supported traffic control for the Chamber of Commerce Halloween event downtown. On the 26th, we attended the YMCA Trunk or Treat event. And on Friday, we worked with Chief Sunny and team handing out candy and watching for the safety of trick-or-treaters. And reminder that tomorrow is outdoor warning siren testing at 10 a.m. Those are the updates that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Any questions for Director Epley? Okay, Chief Sunny.
Okay, just want to go over some of the events that we had in the last couple of weeks. We had our Halloween event at the station. We had the DA drug take-back event that happened. Participated in the downtown trick-or-treat event. Attended a bonfire event. Attended the Harvest Moon Festival. We also participated in the YMCA Trunk or Treat event. And then we just recently wrapped up the week with playing chair volleyball again. And then the Explorers continue to have a couple meetings during that time. Just some traffic enforcement and grants. We just completed our extra traffic enforcement under the current grant that was for the fact that there's currently one candidate remaining on our new officer eligibility list. So we are just down to one person that is on that list. Everybody else on that list has either taken a job elsewhere or through some background information stuff out, they've been eliminated from the list. And then, I've been talking about this for months, but tomorrow is the day. Our social worker will be at our police department. She is gonna be at our police department from 8 to 4:30. She's assigned primarily to us from 10 to 4:30, but she will be at our police department Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 to 4:30. They currently are working about 5 or 6 cases with them. There seem to be more coming in every single day that they have. So I'm very proud and happy that we're starting that program. I think it's gonna serve the community very well on that. We are also looking to next year, probably end of January, beginning of February, we are going to be participating in officer wellness checks. It's mandated by the state as part of the Safety Acts, where officers once a year are required to check in with basically a psychologist and have a wellness check done with them. So we're gonna start taking that. This I'm also very proud of too. By the end of 2025, every one of our officers will be trained in crisis intervention training. So they will all be CIT trained. We have 3 more officers left to complete that training, and they'll be completing it in the next couple of weeks here. I want to read, actually all 3 of them are here, so it's actually very fitting. I want to read a letter of appreciation pertaining to Sergeant Meisner, Officer Dwyer, and Officer Lunstein. The date that this happened was the 26th of October, so I'm just going to give a summary of what happened. On October 24th, 2025, after receiving a department email in reference to a wanted subject in Sandwich, Sergeant Meyer, Officer Dwyer, and Officer Lunstein decided to put a plan together to apprehend the subject. The male subject, who was wanted out of Kendall County on a no-bond warrant for driving while license suspended, and another no-bond warrant out of Aurora for aggravated criminal sexual assault of a child under the age of 13, a Class X felony. They had information that he resided in the 100 block of East Railroad Street in Sandwich. Sergeant Meiser, Officer Dwyer, Officer Lunstein obtained as much information as possible, attempt to locate the offender. Surveillance began on 10/24 and continued throughout the evening until the end of the shift. There was no sighting of the offender. After returning to work on 10/25, they again began surveillance, with continued throughout the evening. It was learned that the offender was back in the area and was aware of the warrants, but would be leaving the state on Monday. On 10/26, after returning to work, they decided they had located a pickup truck parked outside the 100 block of Railroad that they had learned was an acquaintance of the offender. Sergeant Meisner, Officer Dwyer, and Officer Lunstein watched the truck in an attempt to locate the offender. While watching the vehicle, they observed 2 males approach the truck. The male that entered the passenger side appeared to be the offender. Officer Dwyer and Officer Lunstein moved their squads in position them so the truck was unable to be moved. After yelling to the driver, the passenger was instructed to exit the vehicle, which he eventually did. They identified him as the offender, and he was taken into custody without incident. Sergeant Meisner, Officer Dwyer, and Officer Lunstein's determination and sound judgment led to the safe apprehension of a suspect with a violent past. Congratulations to Sergeant Meisner, Officer Dwyer, and Officer Lunstein on a job well done.
Any of them in the room, Chief?
Yeah, all 3 of them are in the room. So it was very fitting.
I was gonna make them raise their hand, but I realized they are right
They're
there.
almost in height order too. Dwyer changed positions.
Very nice work. We appreciate the work you did. It's nice to hear those kind words said about us and our police department, so thank you.
I just want to also bring up the Christmas event. Our Christmas event is scheduled for December 16th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the police department. There'll be some information coming out of that soon. We're going to kind of coordinate that one very similar to the Easter event, where we're going to use Sign Up Genius to just kind of have an idea of when people are going to be coming to give a better idea. And then the reminder of the dashboard, lots of great information on the dashboard and also on our webpage. And then I received today a street closure permit for the Commerce for their event on December 6th from 3 to 7 p.m. Where they'll be closing down Railroad between Pearl and Wells. This is their typical event that they do every year, so I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention on that. They have all the information that they need for it. And then the last thing I just want to do is, I always do, I want to give a sincere thank you to all the officers for their continued work and hard dedication that they do day in and day out.
All right, questions for Chief Senni? Okay, thank you, Chief. Moving on to engineering, Kurt Detman.
All right, first of all, Main Street construction, paving, if you haven't noticed, is going on this week. Getting very, very close. There is one lead service line still remains, I believe it's 213, that will get taken care of here after the paving is all done. And then there are some sidewalks still that Nicor has to replace. And then we'll be going through, and there's restoration, kind of working to see about if there's temp restorations needed or if we can get through the winter here and do the restoration next spring. Punch list will be prepared, kind of getting through final closeout items here as much best we can here. And the contractor's done a great job get this project done without rolling into next year. So hopefully saving a lot of money on the contract. Secondly, lead service line grant was submitted last week, for the round 4 of the notice of funding opportunity. It's a $20,000 to $50,000 range, and $40,000 is the city's max based on the service lines that the city has of $1,000 to $44,999. So we'll see what we get on that. KKCOM, the grant opportunities for that, we were looking at Castle and South Main Street. I believe this is in programming years 2030 and 2031. So we'll be putting those together for submittal later this year. And lastly, the HLR contract, we have that. It'll be on your docket for tonight to vote on for Pratt Road Bridge Phase 3 construction. That's all I got.
Okay, questions for our engineer? Okay. Thank you, Kurt. We'll move on to unfinished business. We had item A, which is the potential regulation for low-speed vehicles. And so I'll open the floor back up for any comments or discussion. Rich, nobody? You made the news.
I don't know. Can't be the only one that talks all the time, so if anybody else has a comment or has an opinion on it. So, again, there are golf carts that are driving around town, and we don't have an ordinance that we're not a golf cart community. And I see more than just the one that has a low-speed vehicle license plate, so.
Yeah, I'd recommend too. This was not a new topic for council. I think we discussed this and finalized it probably 3 years ago, that it was determined that we're not a golf cart community and that's not something that we want to see. And it didn't meet some of the safety requirements that we thought were best in place. And so council at that time had decided that they did not want golf carts and made it clear that it was not something they wanted to consider. So if you haven't read that, you can go back and take a look at those minutes. Might be helpful just to see what was discussed at that time, from safety to routes to people coming in and out of the community. So, Adam?
Well, according to our packets, reading everything, golf carts aren't allowed anyways. Low-speed vehicles, according to state Illinois law, low-speed vehicles are allowed. There are several requirements they have to have. They have to have a VIN. Golf carts don't have a VIN. I talked to Jeff about this earlier. I know where my son's at. The PD is who actually regulates the LSV. They permit them. And they do it in blocks to where the police department isn't getting inundated with 200 showing up in one day. And what it is, they go into City Hall, they fill out the information for a permit, they bring the information to the PD with the vehicle, the PD actually inspects it, signs off on it, they take it back to City Hall and they get their sticker. I believe it's around $100 a year per LSV. And in reading this, unless we make an ordinance, LSVs are allowed. So I think the best way, if we are allowing LSVs, is we permit them, we have the PD actually check them out, make sure they are what they're supposed to be. Because in talking to some residents this weekend, what they were ultimately worried about is having these vehicles on the road, having a car hit them. Because it's really dangerous for whoever's inside that vehicle. So that's public comment to me, was just safety of the people inside those things.
Good, other comments?
I guess I do just want to add that I think it was in 2022, I did prepare a golf cart ordinance, and we didn't go that way because it was the golf carts, and it was not the low-speed vehicles. So I think that making the difference is probably important, and then if, there's basically two options. You pass an ordinance that says you prohibit low-speed vehicles, or you do as Adam said, and you would pass an ordinance requiring various permitting processes. The other thing is that for the low-speed vehicle, it's a lot more than what most people expect, right? Lights, has to have the big orange triangle on the back, and then there'd be the permitting procedure, so the police could ensure that it was done. So I think that's probably the question that the council needs to answer is, do they want it? And then move forward with the permitting process, or do an ordinance prohibiting them from being. And as he said, just passing if we did permit this low-speed vehicles, that wouldn't permit your average golf cart at all.
I agree with what Adam said. We talked earlier today, and if we could permit them, and they'd have some sort of identifying number on them. So say people from other communities or something were driving in here with theirs, then we would know the difference, and then those could be handled appropriately because they're not to be on the roads here or anything like that. And, the golf carts then get dealt with because they're not required. But I think low-speed vehicles are okay.
Problem is that if it's a low-speed vehicle, they're already allowed by Illinois law. So they've got a license plate on them issued by the state of Illinois. So Cousin Vinny can come up from wherever, bring his low-speed vehicle, trailer it up here, and he can drive around Sandwich with it because he's got a Illinois registration plate. Nothing requires him to have to be from Sandwich to be a resident or anything else. He'd be able to operate under the low-speed vehicle law. So I think the question is gonna be it's gonna be the safety and the enforcement. I mean, I don't know. Chief, have any golf carts been stopped in the last year that you know of?
Not necessarily stopped on the street, but I know some officers have gone to residents' house and have spoken to them. So yes, no to your question. So they've been aware, they've been advised, and they've gone and they've spoken to them. So that education part is there. Just on the topic, because we kind of have two different topics. We have golf carts and the vehicle and the low-speed vehicles.
Low-speed vehicle is a golf cart. Just to let everybody know, it basically is a golf cart. It just has
Different
additional
parameters.
things
Yes, I would
on it.
agree. The question then comes, listening to the last council meeting, just following up on that, there was some discussion about creating a local ordinance that would forbid them from being on the city streets, but then citing them under the state statute for the violation. So my question on that is more of the legal question. Is that something that we could do? Because we're then writing a state violation on something that the state allows to happen. And then my other question on that is just a thought process is if we're looking to potentially do some type of state regulation of this word, state enforcement, we need to make sure that the state's attorney is on board with this too, because the state's attorney essentially has the ability to decide not to prosecute certain cases for whatever reason they choose to.
Well, you're not gonna know until you write a ticket.
Or we can have that conversation beforehand
Sure.
with Riley and find out the fact is that, hey, is this something that your office is interested in pursuing?
But the law already states that all a city or municipality has to do is pass an ordinance or resolution saying that we don't allow them.
I get that, but my follow-up question would be more for Cassandra is, does that ordinance allow you to write under the state, or you have to write under the city ordinance?
You wouldn't write it under a city ordinance, because that's why I've been saying since day one, do it by a resolution rather than an ordinance. Because all you're doing at that point is enforcing the state law, which is listed there as far as what it is.
But there's some state laws that you can't necessarily enforce under the city part because of the moving, like, we can't write citations for our city sarge for moving violations because it affects their driving status. We can do equipment all day long, but we can't do moving type violations.
You can't write them city ordinance as a moving violation?
You can't, no, you can't, because we don't have a city court system for that. Many years ago, there was, the court system was here, but it's still, there are some municipalities that do write people what they would deem a local ordinance for speeding violation, but they also have a city attorney that prosecutes that case at the circuit court
All right,
level.
so that wouldn't be something that would go through adjudication.
If it was city ordinance, yes, it would be adjudication.
That's what it would be
But I just wanted to make sure I think maybe I misinterpreted you, but the last time when you were speaking about this, it made it seem like you wanted the ordinance or resolution passed, but then you wanted to be written under the state citation to it. And I just
No.
want to clarify that.
Well, let me clarify for you. I never once wanted an ordinance. I was very adamant, because that's what the law says, is ordinance, resolution, or there was something else that stated also. So, no. Someone else was speaking, saying that we should make an ordinance because there's no way of enforcing it. Yes, there is a way of enforcing it because it says it right there in the law as far as what it is. So, again, that might be a difference of opinion. It might be something that somebody doesn't realize and doesn't know that.
It's just more of the clarification. Are we looking to write it as a compliance citation, or are we looking to write it as a Illinois Vehicle Code criminal citation like speeding?
Well, I was always under the impression that you could enforce the IVC under the local ordinance because there's a section that says that we can do that. I thought the city of Sandwich had passed that years and years and years ago. So
The adjudication process, yes, totally, but we don't write anything in adjudication dealing with, other than, we are able to write seatbelts under adjudication, because we can write equipment violations under adjudication, but we can't write, 11 moving violations under city.
I guess I don't understand why, because it would not affect their driver's license because it's not being reported to the state.
There's the answer to your question, because the state wants that stuff going to the state. That's why they took away seatbelts from us, because the state, cell phones. Cell phones, we used to be able to write under the local compliance citation too, but then the law was changed. It said that we couldn't write that. It had to be a state charge.
So section C says that the local unit of government may prohibit by regulation, ordinance, or resolution.
And so I guess people may disagree, but so there was a very good session on the difference between ordinances, resolutions at IML on Saturday. I wasn't able to attend that. But basically, the difference there is an ordinance is a more permanent law. A resolution is for less permanent, more like policy statements or temporary matters. So there was no case law necessarily on this, but my understanding is if you were to maybe pass a resolution saying that the 4th of July weekend, no of those low speeders could be present. But if you wanted to permanently prohibit them, because the state statute allows them, we would have to pass an ordinance to make it a law of our municipality. The violation then would be a city violation. And while the provisions in there do say that it could be considered, it's, doesn't say violation, but it says under that subsection that we can do that. So I believe your argument is that the ticket could be written as a violation of that subsection. My review is that very rarely is there just a singular citation issued. So that was difficult for me to narrow. But so in most instances, it's going to be issued alongside a speeder or some other thing. So then it usually does get written separately. And so I have only seen them as ordinance violations, but the issue is it's a very new statute. And so I have not seen, and I put out in one of the listservs to ask for other municipal attorneys' position on this, and no one really has had much experience with whether or not it would be written as a violation of state statute. Most municipalities are writing it as a violation of local ordinance.
So I know that we also have e-bikes and scooters. Seems like we probably need to go back and have a conversation with the state's attorney's office on this, before we come back and have a lot more discussion to figure out, like, if we do move one direction or the other, what would their role be in this, and what are they likely to do? So we don't take some action that it doesn't go the route that we'd planned through either adjudication or through some other type of proceeding. So does that sound like a fair place to maybe stop for the night and see if we can get some other guidance?
Yeah, because we're not going to get anywhere tonight with it, but
Right.
again, I did want to just comment that low-speed vehicles, it does say that all standard traffic laws apply. Specifically, the operation of a low-speed vehicle upon any street is subject to the provisions of Chapter 11, which is moving violations of this code concerning the rules of the road and applicable local ordinances. And then, of course, it says 625 ALCS/5/11-1426.2H, which, again, is what I've been saying for the last month now, that I'm about not reinventing the wheel. If there's stuff that we have already in our arsenal, we might as well just use that. That was the point I was making, rather than having to create an ordinance. But if that's the easiest thing to do, to regulate it and to say that, hey, now you don't even have to worry about looking to see if there's a plate. Not only to see if there's a plate, because the person applied for it and the state said yes, and they send them a low-speed vehicle license plate for it, but it doesn't have seatbelts. It doesn't have turn signals. It doesn't have the windshield. Well, if it doesn't have any of those, it shouldn't have gotten it to begin with. So, again, yeah, I'm sure there needs to be more, but
Okay, well, we'll reach out to the state's attorney and we'll see if we can get some guidance as well.
Well, I guess I would just ask, it seems like there are kind of two different sides here. It sounds like Adam and Janelle would like to allow low-speed vehicles and permit them, and it sounds like, Rich, that's not something that you're wanting
No,
to do?
I would love if everybody drove great, but they don't. I would
Very true.
love if everybody would be safe in a golf cart, in a side-by-side. That is why this ordinance didn't pass 3-4 years ago or whatever, was because nobody felt safe that everyone else would be safe. Not necessarily an enforcement thing, because no, I would much rather educate the public and have them abide by the rules rather than writing them a ticket. But that's when you can go up and knock on a door, or you see somebody parked at Arts, or you see them parked outside of the laundromat, and they've got a golf cart sitting there and it doesn't have plates on it, or maybe it does have plates, but you can obviously see it doesn't have turn signals. It doesn't have a side mirror. It doesn't have a rear view mirror. All of the things that are required, these are all things that people could make contact on. And again, I don't want this to be a moneymaker for the city. It's supposed to be safety.
I think we decided last time it wasn't going to be, after we looked at the cost and the time each review would take.
Well, just the time that we've spent on it in the last month and a half, talking about it during this meeting, and we're still no further with it. It was brought up because there's an issue.
Yeah.
We haven't had the accidents with the e-bikes or e-scooters like Plano has. Knock on
I almost
wood.
hit a kid Friday on an e-bike. Just didn't follow the rules of the road, didn't have turn signal, didn't have the right-of-way at the intersection, turned in front of me. That wasn't in Plano, but that was another community, so. All right, let's do this. Jeff, will you search our minutes and pull the discussion on the golf cart so we can share that with everybody? We have a lot of new council members since we had that. I'll talk with the state's attorney's office, and we'll see if we can get some guidance from there.
And Mayor, just to Cassandra's point, I'm on the side where I don't want to see them. So that's where I'm at. I've kept quiet just to absorb and see, you know, because I didn't want to influence and that sort of thing. But now it's the point where, as you said, Rich, the whole premise behind why we didn't go that way in the first place is because we're not the Millingtons, we're not the smaller towns, the Newarks. I mean, we have a highway here, we have a hospital in town, we have a lot of activity, we have a lot of people coming and going. And the police department, as you see by the reports, are busy doing other stuff. They don't need another headache. And I think it's just going to be another headache. So let's get some things straightened out, and then maybe later on down the road, we could open up different opportunities like this. But let's straighten up with what we have issues with currently and move forward from there. That's my opinion.
Anybody else before we move on? Okay. Next item is the lead line discussion. This is not related to our Main Street project. So you had some information shared with you about how we voted last time about the non-Main Street lead lines, that we were going to do a 50-50 replacement. I think where it brings us back to is that we have one line left on Main Street, and we have some other issues taking place within the community in regards to lead lines. We've yet to decide how we would handle the homeowners 50% and how we would apply that and how that would be paid. So I think, Jeff, right, that's the conversation for tonight, is a little more direction on where we want to go with this process.
Right. Part of what we're running into is that we've got B boxes in front of some homes that are not working. When we go to work on those, if there is a lead line, then based on the lead line code, we have to take it out and replace it. So we need to figure out how we're going to proceed with that. If the council wants to stick with the 50-50 that they had discussed on September 2nd, that's one option. The second meeting in September, it was written that it was to exempt those on Main Street because it was part of a federal project. And, you know, the big thing for staff is just how to implement this, because if we're gonna collect it, how long do we wanna be able to work with people to try to collect it? How are we going to bill it? Is it gonna be something that, we're gonna need some legal documents to be able to have a memorandum of understanding with homeowners, plus what we've done with the other ones is a temporary easement to be able to do the work at their home. So it's just a matter of trying to figure out how do we really want to handle this, and, you know, because we have to look at it from a staffing perspective too, as to how do we manage those payments. You know, I'm not 100% sure that we can just add them to the water bill, but that would be something we would look to hopefully do in the future. But, you know, we do bill quarterly, so if it comes out over 10 years that it's $43 a month, that doesn't sound too bad. But when you do $43 a month times 3 because it's quarterly, that's $130 almost that gets added on top of everything else. So I want to try and keep it manageable for everybody within a time frame, but at the same time, those dollars are dollars that the city is expending, and then we're waiting a long time to get back. So it's not an ideal situation.
And currently, if you don't pay your water bill, you get your notice, you get your shut off, and then the clerk liens your property. That's how it works with those. So I would assume this wouldn't be any different, because that's what our ordinance says. If someone was to have a bill charge that they could pay off over time and didn't pay it, that is our typical practice under our code. Okay, any comments on that or suggestions?
Yep.
Yes, Adam?
Go ahead.
Okay, so currently our ordinance doesn't allow us to do repairs and replace these lines. So if we're not going to change our ordinance, which if we're going to do this 50-50, it's gotta be changed. It's gotta give an exception for lead line replacement or something.
I think that ideally, I would like to see the city formalize a program like many other municipalities have. And I think we're moving in that direction. But I think right now, that's what we're trying to get from the city or from the council, is what do you want to be the terms of this? And I wouldn't say not allow. It does say that we're not responsible for that, and the responsibility is on the homeowner, but there was a motion made and passed to contribute 50% of that to the homeowners due to the lead service line replacement. So, but I think the biggest thing is formalizing all of that and how that's gonna happen. And that would include probably an ordinance change of how we're dealing with the lead service lines. You know, most likely, I presume, the city is going to have to pay up front for most of these people. And what the city will believe to be sufficient in terms of a repayment program or things like that. So yes, that needs to be formalized, but I think we need to know how you guys want to handle that.
And also at last council, I had brought up investment properties, because the majority of investment properties are purchased in the older portions of town. The older portions of town is where we're going to find our lead lines. We possibly have 400 to 600 more lead lines. Say half of those, 300 are rental properties. We're going to ask our residents to subsidize $3 million to replace lead lines into investment properties. People that possibly, in many of the homes, investments, people don't even live here. They buy the property in foreclosure, they buy the property as a fixer-upper, and then our residents are going to pay to subsidize and fix their home. I don't think it's fair that our residents would have to pay to subsidize an investment property.
So, and I have looked into that, and the best solution I can come up with for you in that would be to require an application process and for the cost to be shared based on a financial need. We would not be able to say that, investment properties or things like that, like make a blanket statement. But we could certainly, and many municipalities have made it based on an application basis, on a financial need basis, which the thinking of the other municipalities that have done that is that, generally speaking, an investment property owner is not going to qualify under a financial need circumstance.
And that'd be fine, because I'm all for helping our homeowners that live here, our homeowners that have lived here their whole lives, and they just need a hand. A lot of people don't have $10,000 laying around to pay for this, but I will not let our residents pay $3 to $6 million to subsidize somebody's retirement property. I just can't do it.
So I think what the city would need to determine is what the criteria for financial need would be from your perspective. There's easy ways to do it, right? Just poverty level would be, and I can provide you with some examples of other municipalities that have done this, but so, poverty level, they get the most cost sharing, and it essentially becomes like a tiered kind of system. But that's what you have to decide, is what the level is that, you want to kind of put the cutoff at, obviously, and then go down from there. But I can provide you some examples of that.
Because at a certain point, this $3 to $6 million, whatever it may be that it comes out as a final cost, we have to pay for that somehow. And that's raising water rates because we don't have the money just laying around. What I'd talked to Fred about, and I've talked to several people about, is we're also sitting talking about different finances, different monies, and voting on things that I really think we need to have the budget committee, I talked to Fred, sit down and actually look financially where we're at with things. Come back to us with a recommendation, because in the end of the day, dollars and cents, we need to know what we have, what we can afford, what we can do.
And I guess just Kurt, do you know if there's going to be another grant funding opportunity opening up for the actual replacement
That would be coming next year.
next year? Okay.
Yeah, that was a March timeframe.
Yep, yep.
Rich?
Just want to clarify that at that first meeting in September, whenever we passed it, that was going to be 50%, but that was going to be everybody in the city, including the Main Street. 2 weeks later, when we met, it was talked about, because the ones that were told or received a letter on Main Street that, you know, they were already told or were under the impression they were getting it. The city was paying for it all. And so we voted for the Main Street only, and we decided to do that. It's not listed in here, but the discussion was, and not everybody was in agreement with it, but a big part of the discussion was that we can't give it to part of town free and then expect for the rest of town to pay for this. We can't afford it, period. But again, we can't give it to all of Main Street, no cost, and now the people on Castle Street or Wolf or Arnold, you name the street, the older part of town, and they're on their own. They've got to pay for 50% or 100% of that part. I mean, the city's already gonna be taking care of the city portion. That's our responsibility. So if we have to change the ordinance to say that, with the exception of the lead service lines, because again, it's mandated, so it doesn't matter what our code says. It's mandated that it has to be done, but again, what's fair is fair. And I understand what you're saying as far as we can't put on, it's gonna be on the taxpayers regardless. So whether it's 50% that the city's paying or 100% the city's paying, all of our money is from the taxpayers. So that's how you have to look at it. But my opinion would be is that if we've already given it to, how many houses approximately?
Well, 30.
30. So 300,000 approximately already. That wasn't necessarily planned for. I mean, in the bills tonight, there's 80-some thousand. And I think in the bills 2 weeks ago, there was 80,000. So this is something that's not going away. We're gonna keep doing it. We're gonna have to keep applying for those grants or the, you know, the low interest loan to pay it back. When I was suggesting the 50-50 for everybody, including Main Street, I said I didn't care if it took 20 years for them to pay it back. Is it gonna be a nightmare to have to keep track of and everything else? I'm sure it is. But next thing we're gonna be talking about is new software and stuff like that, that's gonna help us out financially anyway. And I think, what, 2027 is when this is mandatory that we have to start doing it?
Yep, for 10 years.
Unless, of course, we're disturbing the lines, which that is the point we're talking about right now, is these lines that they have to replace these V-boxes before winter, because it's better that they do it now while it's still decent weather out than doing it in January or February when the ground's frozen and everything else. So again, that's my 2 cents. I know some people agreed with that a couple of weeks ago when we talked about it. Don't know if they still do or not, but I've talked enough.
Okay, other comments about that? All right, we're gonna have to draft something then for you to start having a formalized plan, so.
Well, and because of the weather, there is some urgency with this. We do need to know what we're doing. We've got,
Yeah, I mean, I
These
guess
could be
right now
much
I
worse.
feel like we have two sides again, and so we need some guidance. Jeff needs to know how to proceed, so,
Well, if it's an emergency and needs to get done now, then just do it. If we have to shut water off, we gotta shut water off. I know we had an incident a few nights ago or whatever it was, 3 water main breaks. We had water leaking in a guy's basement, so the B-box had to get replaced. If it has to be done, do it. We'll find the money somewhere. We're gonna have to, no matter what.
well, I think the thing right now is that, as the motion was made, right now, that if a lead service line has to be replaced, not related to Main Street, that homeowner has to pay for 50% of it. The question is, how does the city want them to pay back that 50%? And if that's not what they want them to do, then we don't want to tell them that, because that is the current status of what you guys have passed. So.
Right, because the second part of that evening was I tried pushing another motion and it didn't hold, right? So the 50-50 still stays in place as it stands currently.
Yes.
So since that's the way it goes, I think that's where Jeff needs to go with staff and press forward on these situations.
Well, we certainly can write a replacement plan and reimbursement for you. We certainly can write one that addresses some of these things, then we can decide which actual
Yeah,
ordinance we want to vote on.
And the other thing to keep in mind too is that when this all happened, it was all pretty quick, right? There was a lot of activity in a short amount of time. We did not put it out to a formal bid to grab additional bidders. We now have some good bid specs to work off of. We know that there's better pricing that is based upon quantities, right? So as we know now, galvanized services are probably most likely going to qualify for the lead replacement, which is going to increase our numbers. So if we can put all those numbers into a good quantifiable bid specification out to the prospective bidders, we'll get better pricing. So I think these $10,000 numbers are gonna come down to the $6,000 and potentially even lesser numbers to where it's going to be more equitable for us. One aspect is a possible bond that could be pulled for this. We don't really have the cash flow to pay for this. So we are going to have to borrow money to make this happen, in my mind. Also talking about getting a budget committee, yes, you're right on. We just need to get the financials for October, and then we'll have our 6 months to work off of. But, you know, the biggest thing here is we have an issue. We're losing water in some of these locations. We're having infiltration in some of these locations. We're unable to shut off people that can't pay their bills in some of these locations. But then that brings up another caveat, is if they can't pay their bill, how are they gonna pay that back? And so then that's when it comes back as that payment plan. How do we work a payment plan? So it's a double-edged sword, but I think at this point, I personally believe staff has what they need to move forward with giving information to the public for the 50-50. Maybe we need to rework that letter a little bit, so it's maybe not as brash, but I guess brash isn't the right thing. It's very pointed as to what it needs to be, just to get the attention of the public at that point.
It's a matter of fact.
Yeah, so I think probably more of a one-on-one, knocking on the door, having that conversation with that resident's more important than a letter.
And then again, our plan is by March to write a loan request for lead lines and write one for our water well systems. So, all right. Sounds like we got some consensus, so we'll move on.
Okay, so I'm supposed to implement this at 50-50.
Yep, and we'll do our agreements
Pardon
with easement, and we'll have to determine
Well,
what the
or are
payment
they
plan-
emergency repairs and we
I
need to
mean-
do
I
them.
mean, if they're lead, if they fall into the lead category, the vote was that it was 50-50.
And I will stand by that, that was original, but I think that only passed because it was citywide, including Maine. I think you're gonna have a difference of opinion. We're missing 2 aldermen tonight to give their opinion. And again, there's 6 of us here. You know what my opinion is, but these few that we have right now, the 4 or 5 with their B-box, I think it should be the same as Main Street, and we're paying it regardless. Otherwise, we're waiting, but we're gonna be waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
And I would have been
mean,
willing to do that for everyone.
If you look at page 13 of what was handed out to us, the motion's in there, and it specifically calls out the streets. And I know that there was a comment made afterwards, if we're paying for this, we're gonna end up paying for it all. However, when the second motion was brought up of how to contend with the remaining lead services, one option was thrown on the table. It wasn't supported, right? And no other option was available or presented. So at that point, it reverts back to the original 50-50. Am I right on
Yeah,
that?
so September 2nd, motion was made, and it's 50-50. First, it was North Main Street, and then it was amended to citywide. And then on September 15th, the motion was made, and there was a specific exhibit actually attached to the minutes that the cost was waived to 0 for just those listed on that exhibit. And so that's where we're at. So citywide is still the 50/50. It was just the properties on the exhibit.
Yeah, and some municipalities are paying 100%, but they're also imposing a secondary fee onto the utility bill to cover that. And some people might say, well, that's not fair. That's not the way that it should be because that's only impacting a small amount. However, these property owners have been paying into the water system a heck of a lot longer than some of the, like in my subdivision, right? Well, it's like the school districts. As people pay in, their kids move on, they're still paying those taxes to the school district, even though they don't have kids there. So there might need to be a fee that's put on to cover this. There might have to be some other fees put on to cover other things that are going on. We don't want to fee people to death, but you got to think of this also as a separate business. This is a separate business entity within the city because it's an enterprise fund. So the sewer and then the waterworks are two different companies. And they really should be looked at that way versus as the city as a whole.
So even if they paid $50 a quarter, $200 a year, that'd take them 25 years to pay back their 50%. 25 years.
With how, is that with 0 interest?
With zero interest, because I believe our comments were we weren't going to charge interest and add that on. So we're going to have to come back with a better payment plan, or like I said, we're going to have to lien the home as our only other option, because some people may move during this whole process.
I think we should just pay for 100%. It's not fair to everyone else. There's no way. We gotta change this.
In all honesty, I think what needs to happen is you need to figure out what it's really gonna cost you. So you can figure out how you're gonna be able to repay it.
Yeah, this year's budget was 80,000. We had no idea we had this many lines, so.
We should have had that done
Your microphone on?
2-3 months ago. When we realized how many
Rich,
we had.
is your mic on?
Yeah, it's on. So we should have done this before. No sense in beating a dead horse, though. It was whatever. People misspoke, things were told that shouldn't have been told, whatever. And we're honoring that. And I still say that the most fair thing to do is to do it citywide.
Yeah,
But again, I'm only one person. So if that means we need to make a motion when everyone's here, let's put it on the agenda for 2 weeks from now.
And
Right now, we're
and I
gonna have
think-
it done.
I
Tell
think your
people
point
it's a
with that
question
is
mark.
there was some misunderstanding as to what was out in the field and how it all worked, and other municipalities are falling into the same trap hole that we are. I mean, they're finding that they didn't think that it was lead, and now it's lead, so.
I'll be honest with you, Rich, I talked to Don this morning, and I talked to Don, Karsta, you, and Fred. But the recommendation of sending it to budget and having them bring a recommendation back, I told Don I didn't think it was fair because he was also voting for 100%. I think his vote needs to be heard. So I think coming back with the recommendation from budget at 17th gives everybody a chance.
That's fine. And then I guess in the meantime, you just tell who's ever getting the emergency stuff done right now, we don't know. Worst case scenario, it's gonna be 50%. And yeah, it sucks because you can't give them a better answer. But worst case scenario, 50%. As long as the council would agree that that's a pretty fair assessment, that's what we already voted for, right? So that's the
Yeah,
worst case scenario.
I would think that it would be 50%, and the best case is that it's going to be rescinded.
Correct.
Because that's what it currently is.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
instead of saying it's nothing and then it could be 50%, tell them it's 50% and it could be nothing.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Worst case scenario, 50% is what they have to
Correct.
pay.
But you always wanna tell them that it's 50% right now.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, it's 50% right now.
Okay, got that.
I have
Can I
a
move
question
on?
though. Do they have the option though to still do it on their own? Instead of using our contractors? Because you can do it on your own to replace their lead light on their own. Because what if I did it on my own and found somebody to do it for $6,000 versus the $10,000 we're getting quoted? You know, so.
That's fine. We
That
would
was
just
one
have
of the
to-
options
yeah.
when we did this, when we originally rolled this out, was
That
they
was the
could do
first
that or they
option.
could sign the waiver. The only thing we don't know is if they sign the waiver, if that excludes them from any future, Like if there is grant funding that would cover it, if that would exclude them from being able to partake in that.
But they wouldn't have to sign the waiver if they did it on their own, right?
If they did it
Right.
on their
Right,
own, no.
okay.
Yeah, that was the first option we'd put out there, is if they wanted to, they could move forward on their own. We would just have to know about it because they're still connecting to our B-Box, but yeah,
Right.
certainly that is an
Right,
option.
we'd want to get our side done and then they could go
Because
ahead and
it's,
have it done.
can be a lot cheaper option if you did this on your own, so.
Good.
That would probably be the cleanest thing. I think it's difficult for some people who aren't comfortable going out and finding a contractor and
Great. Okay, we'll get something ready for next meeting then on this. New discussion, flock cameras, law enforcement, chief?
Okay, I hope everybody got a chance to look over the information, just kind of glimpse through it. But this is something that we at the police department have been looking at for probably the last year and a half. It's technology that's out there, that's been out there for a while. So flock cameras, basically we actually do have one in town. For those that aren't aware, we have one on 34 in Drew. It's actually Kendall County's. We do not have access to it though, because we are not part of the program, but there is one camera in our town currently for it. They actually call them Falcons if you see them in there. Just some overview. So currently, like DeKalb and Kendall County has them. Hinckley Police Department, or they just received 4 of them. There's one up on East Sandwich Road, or yeah, it's still East Sandwich Road there. And then Oswego has them. Sycamore Police Department has them. Sycamore actually has about 24 of them. However, I don't know exactly how many of them are owned by the police department. Sycamore has worked well within their business district to have them put up there, which is discussed in the program too. Cortland has them, and then if you guys just recently saw, Plano recently has received 4 of them too. So basically they are cameras that are mounted on a pole, in which they then capture license plates for vehicles that are traveling on your roads. The purpose of that is to, a lot of the purpose is to solve crime that's going on within your town. They're a great tool to be used by law enforcement to apprehend individuals. I mean, there's some success stories that are in here, but one of the ones that I just kind of like to think about is if you had a family member that was hurt to great degree, or if you had a family member who was having a bad day and maybe was suicidal and they drove off in a vehicle, this technology will allow that vehicle to be tracked on any camera that it may go past. And if you saw at the beginning, there are currently over 4,000 of these cameras in the state of Illinois, and there are currently 90,000 of them nationwide, and they continue to grow throughout the nation. And once you're part of the program, not only do you get access of the 4,000 that are part of Illinois, you get access to the 90,000 that are also out there. And one of the things later if you looked into the thing too, is they are able to integrate those camera systems. They're actually able to integrate camera systems that are existing out there into their program. For example, potentially we could look to integrate the school's camera system into the program. We could also integrate our own police department camera system into the program, meaning the building camera. We could work with the local businesses to look to integrate their camera systems within the program too. A lot of these cameras, there's instances that are in there. I'm not going to go through them all that they gave examples, but there have been homicides that have been solved because of these flock cameras. Be able to get the offender information, be able to track the vehicle that the offender is in, and be able to know where their last thing is. And actually, the system allows you to set up parameters or alerts on vehicles. So our officers could be sitting, running stationary patrol out on Castle and Pleasant, and get a hit off a camera coming into town, which is one of the locations, to say, hey, this vehicle is associated with a child abduction, or this vehicle is wanted in a homicide, or this vehicle is wanted for a sex offender violation. So it allows them to get hits on in particular vehicles in real time too. So there's not that much delay as long as they're solved in there. We've had some recent cases. We had Corrals that got burglarized. We also had Edgebrook that got burglarized. This would have been a great tool for us to be able to, we had the time frame in which this happened, to be able to look and say, hey, what vehicles were coming and moving into town during that time, and that would have given us an idea of here's some plate information, additional investigative tool for people to be, for our police department to be able to use. They're also great for drug interdiction, to be able to establish the fact is, hey, we may know that this person is moving drugs, here's the vehicle, it shows the route. That's one of the things that is great to use in interdiction purposes for it. We kind of I worked with them to kind of come up with some locations, and these locations are subjective. The nice thing about these camera systems are that at any time if we decided, hey, this location, we aren't getting a lot of benefit out of this location, or we have some other coverage in which we're getting the same information, we just call them and they can they just up and move the camera to the next location. So some of the locations that we look to do were Latham and Sandhurst, Latham and Center, Castle and Knights, Center and Fairwinds, Gleddy and 34, to be able to capture both sides of 34. Main Street and Jupiter is where we went to look for that. Lyons and Dayton, Sandy Bluff and Ernest, Griswold Springs and Sandy Bluff, and then County Line and Gleddy. Those are just some of the areas where we looked and we might get the most coverage. One thing we have to watch with these cameras is the way that they're set up is even if they're facing westbound, so they'll get the cars that are coming, if they're facing westbound, they'll end up getting the cars that are coming into town. But since Illinois has 2 plates, and where most of our streets are 2 lanes, we'll actually have the ability to get both front and rear license plates, which is great for, obviously, the states that have 2 plates in them. If they have, only 1 plate on there, then it depends on where the direction is that they're coming. Cost of the camera, so each camera themselves costs $3,000. And that cost is a continual cost every single year. So you get the camera, and then that includes the maintenance with them. So if something's wrong with the camera, you call them, they're gonna fix the camera. If we want the location, we want it moved, we can have it moved. Now, they do charge for the initial install of the cameras. There are fees for it, but their fees range anywhere from $650 up to $1,250 a camera, and that really depends on the roadway where they have to be placed. When they're placed on state highways, the permitting and the fees associated with that is a little higher than anywhere else. However, right now, through conversation with them, they are going to waive any install fees with us at the current time. And we talk about funding for it. From the police department, currently, we would look to use some of the money from our drug asset forfeiture funding, and that would cover our first year. And then we could then look to possibly see if that's something that we put in the budget, or again, we could explore with grants. And if we can't come up with the money after year 1, they just come and take their cameras out of the ground, and then we don't have the cameras anymore.
Chief, what are some of the detriments to this camera system other than Big Brother and maybe weather?
I think you just pretty much hit it right on the head there, is that some people may think that we're watching them. And then the weather aspect, I don't think is a huge aspect to the camera systems. The one thing that I did forget to speak of too, we talk about license plates being the main focus, but if you have a partial plate, or sometimes vehicles have no plates, and you have, great example, hit and run type of traffic crash. Person's unable to see the license plates, but know that the car that hit them was a Dodge Durango. You literally can put in that information in that time frame, Dodge Durango. If you have even more information about the Dodge Durango, like it's a black Dodge Durango, you could put that information, and then it will show all the Dodge Durangos that came through during that time frame. So it's another investigative tool that is used for it. So it's just not necessarily that does capture the plates, but it's also capturing the vehicle information too.
So 24/7 infrared.
Yep.
Questions from council or comments?
So year 1
Adam?
cost, yeah. So you're talking $3,000 per camera per year.
Correct.
So $30,000 per year.
And 10 cameras, I think, to be honest with you, 10 cameras, I think, is a stretch right now. I probably initially want to start right around that 8 camera range, so
24,000.
24, and see where that builds, but also be able to potentially expand that to maybe we get some local businesses that will put them in front of their places, or maybe even partner with the school and see if the school district will put a camera or two out on, a camera on Wells, maybe a camera out on Lyons, because that's where the heart of their schools are. So it does have that, when I talk, there is huge partnership. Like when I talk about Sycamore, Sycamore has a huge partnership with their community for the cameras. The Meyer has 2 or 3 cameras in their lots. The Hy-Vee has 2 or 3 cameras in their lots. So a lot of the businesses will put them in their lots too. At the business paying for it though. So just, we're clear on that.
Okay, anyone else?
Were you done, Ed?
Your current camera system right now, how many cameras do you have and what cost is that?
Current camera systems what do you mean by? Because we don't have any
Our-
city camera.
Talking in squad cars.
No, there used to be cameras where they all go, that were here in town.
The only camera system that I'm aware of is the ones that are pretty much on the old police department, correct, Jeff? There are no,
Right.
there are no other city
Verkada
cameras.
camera system is just inside the buildings.
No, there were some that were outside before.
There is one outside of the water plant at Clark Street, and then one at the wastewater treatment plant that monitors who comes in and out, but I don't, if you're talking about a traffic camera, I'm not aware of
Not
it.
traffic cameras, but camera system. I thought there was one downtown. I thought there was, there used to be, I believe.
There's none that I'm aware of. The only other camera systems that I know that the city have are the ones that Jeff spoke of, and then the camera system in the police department.
Where else are those? You have cameras at the schools too?
It's the school's own camera system.
Which one's that?
It's the school district's camera system.
They'd have their own system, whatever system they use for cameras.
They use Verkada too.
Really?
Yes, but that's their own system.
But Flock has an integration tool
Correct.
that can patch that data through it to be able to pull that data in. So for instance, like at my fire department, we have access to floor plans for all the buildings that are in a portal. And we're working on a program that is bringing the police department in Plano and the fire department in Plano together. So we all have access to the information. So if there is an active shooter situation, all the maps are here so we can see what we're dealing with. It can pull live stream video in so that IC can be on the outside looking at everything, seeing what's going on. It can be in multiple locations, reviewing that information. As much as we want to believe that this is a nice, quiet, quaint town, it is. There's a lot of traffic that goes through this town. You have the highways, the country roads, you have the train, it's all here. This technology is something that's going to support our officers and make our community safer and neighboring communities as well. So the other aspect, I don't know if you touched on it, Chief, is that you're gonna be able then to get into the other cameras, right? So
Correct.
that-
So-
that is really big.
So if we have an incident that happens here and they leave our town and we have their plate information or vehicle information of some sort and we can link that together, we can just literally every camera that they hit off of, it'll send us an alert once we put it in there. And these legitimately have solved homicides.
And the Big
Bank
Brother
robberies,
aspect
everything.
about that too, there's some neighboring communities that they were apprehensive to go that route, but then after they started seeing the benefits of the system and what it affords the police efforts to be able to be more strategic in their time and efforts. I mean, so in this case, instead of our 3 officers needing to stake out the location, you could actually put one of these cameras in an area for a day, 3 days, and monitor that traffic, and then take it out and put it back in its other location.
Even when you speak of that, of the case that they work, they could have put that vehicle information in there and they could have got alerts anytime that vehicle hit off a camera. So I mean,
Right.
they literally could have, if that vehicle was coming back into town and it hit off of the camera at 34 and Drew, it would have alerted them the fact is, hey, the vehicle that you're looking for is coming back into town. And the other thing too, when you talked about Big Brother, this does have the technology or allows us to set the parameters of how long we keep the information. That I know that is a big thing. Typically, police departments are keeping that information for around 30 days.
And there's also accessibility, like you have to sign in, you have to log
Correct.
in if it's found to be misused. You know, somebody wants to find out if a loved one is doing something they shouldn't be doing, that's all punishable. And it does happen, unfortunately, but I don't think we'd have anything with our officers here doing that.
And the same thing too, on that too, it doesn't allow for an agency, technically, they don't necessarily allow for agencies to say, hey, Sandwich, you have these cameras, we don't have these cameras, can you tell us if this plate is going? And if they get that in, they can suspend your service.
Correct.
Okay, other questions? Okay, Chief, what do you need next for us to move forward? Do you want to bring us to the next meeting with a formalized cost and finalize how many cameras you'd like?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. And then council, if you have other questions, you can submit those directly to the chief if something else comes up after the meeting or a constituent asks a question of you.
Yeah, I think, Chief, if there'd be a way just to, line item, itemize this, the initial year, and then subsequent years, how you would figure out how we could fund it to continue it, if that line item dips below the reserves or what have you. Thank you.
Okay. Item B is succession planning as it relates to a vacancy due to retirement. Chief, that is yours as well.
So in the next 7 months, we should be seeing an officer retire. He's made it clear that, that he should be done after this upcoming school year. And with that, I'd like to try to, instead of being behind the curve, be right even with the curve. And what I mean by that is the fact is that it takes, if we hire a new officer, we have to send them to the academy. They're in the academy for 4 months. The next academy class is in January. So that brings us to April. Then after they get out of the academy, it's another 3 months of training. So that's May, June, July. That officer will already be retired by that time, so we'll be a little behind during that time. However, that current officer is currently assigned to the school, so we necessarily won't be below, but at the same time, we can then prepare to replace our school resource officer with our next school resource officer. So come the school year, once the school year starts, we will be even at where we are as of today, meaning we will have 15 sworn officers working the street in their positions. Or the other thing is, we wait till he retires, and then we have to go through the whole process of hiring, which, again, if we wait until May, the next academy's probably not until September, because the academy after that will be April, so they'll be right in that 4-month range. So we're into September for 4 months, then we're in field training for 3 months, so we would not be back up to replacing that retirement up until 2027. So I'd like to be ahead of the game than playing from behind the game. And currently, the officer that we're looking to replace, his salary, for the most part, is being paid for by the school.
Okay, any reservations what the chief is proposing instead of always being reactive? He's trying to be proactive in this case. Anyone object to that?
I don't think, I don't think we should hire Ed. Yeah, but somebody changes their mind and they don't retire, whatever, you've got 15 sworn, I know you said you've got one on the list now currently.
Chief, what's the time frame which the officer would have to put in for retirement to the pension?
The time frame, as soon as he puts in his paperwork, I mean, he picks his retirement date. He can say
I know, but how early can he put it in?
30 days.
Okay.
So there's nothing that we could receive now that says, I want to retire April 26th
Correct.
of 26.
Correct.
I
And I
would
see-
definitely feel better having something like that, but I do appreciate the methodology you're putting into this, because being 6 months ahead of that curve is going to set you up for a smoother transition.
Or reduction of overtime.
Correct. And
Yeah,
ultimately, a
and
reduction over time.
that's a very good point, too. I mean, if we go that 9 months, there's going to be additional overtime needed.
Mhm. I mean, I think if there was something given to you stating that I'm going to retire effective this date, and it's binding, I would be in favor of it, but if we didn't, I'm a tad bit apprehensive.
Being one person short, I would think you have been doing scheduling enough where you've got 3 people assigned every shift, correct? 2-person minimum?
Yes, no. We have 1 in training, but eventually, come December, yes, there'll be 3 on each shift.
Good. So it's gonna be the school resource officer that's gonna be retiring,
Correct.
and that's basically gonna be in the summer.
It'll be during the summer months, yes,
So they're,
which people take is our heaviest vacation time.
absolutely. No, I get that. But I also understand that with scheduling, you know, I don't know if you have a guaranteed vacation, but you also don't have to honor every single request that somebody makes for time off just to pay overtime. And you also don't need to have 3 people on a shift if you have a 2-person minimum. So I would assume that with your scheduling, you could reduce overtime to a certain aspect.
I really wasn't tracking the ball that you were putting there, but the summertime is the worst time for staffing wise because of guys taking vacation, in which we're typically running with 2 officers per shift during the summertime.
I get that.
And the guys, sometimes you have to balance that line too for people asking for time off and telling them no, because then that burns them out. And then it also is not good for retention, because then people are gonna look to go to some place where they can get their time off, because people, especially the modern police officers today, they value their time off. It is a struggle to get people to work for overtime.
That's not new to me, but thanks for explaining that.
Okay, I think another aspect to take into this is that, Chief, you've built a great rapport with your staff, and you're trying to keep them in a pace which they're accustomed to now. And I think that's great for the relations with them and you to do what's right for the community. So that's why I would be in favor of making sure that they're staffed and they have everything that they need. If you could just check with the officer and see if they'd be willing to sign something saying, I'm
Or at
going
least
to
a letter
retire
of
in this
intent.
date.
I think when he talks about the letter of intent, I don't necessarily think that's gonna be an issue, a letter of intent, but to make a hard line guarantee, I don't know if he'd be willing to do that, because life changes in a
Yeah,
second.
no, I hear you.
But eventually, he's going to retire, or eventually somewhere along the line, we may have somebody else who goes elsewhere because for whatever may be the reason, and that number will balance itself out. It's just a matter of where it balances itself out.
Well, it's worth an ask before the
Yes.
next meeting, right?
Yep, okay, let's see what we can get out of that, Chief. We will move on to C, which is our financial software services. Jeff and Angie?
All right, I just wanted to make sure we brought you guys up to speed on this. I had put some information into our packet. We have been trying since August to do an upgrade with our Simple Cities software, trying to bring it to their newest version, which is called G-Works. We've been using it for a while, but as we're going through the process, we're finding that there are things that maybe over time they've customized or they've done some different things to try to make it better for everybody. And the new software doesn't seem to have the same capabilities as what we've become used to with our older software. And at this point in time, it does not make sense, in my opinion and staff's opinion, and please chime in, to continue to try to implement something that we feel is not going to meet our needs in a year or two. I think at this point in time, our better bet is to be able to say to them, we're going to continue on the software we have. We know that they're going to support that through 26 into 27, but in our next budget cycle, we need to look seriously at upgrading our financial software and bringing that up to speed. So Denise, I don't know if you want to say anything, or Angie, if you want to say anything, but that's kind of where we're at this point in time.
I'd like you to tell me what it doesn't do currently, and how this will make it different,
Did you want to say something?
as long as your mic's on.
I think what we found is it just, it doesn't we've assumed by going by with the same company that they would very easily be able to take our existing data and upgrade it to the new system, and it would be seamless. And we're finding that that's not exactly the case, that there's, we're gonna be limited, I believe, to 2 years' worth of data or history, that we need our history to be able to know how we're gonna, so we can see trends going forward and things along those lines. I mean, there's silly things, not silly, but I mean, just the way that we do our bills now, when people come in, there's a barcode on it that we scan and then it pulls it right up. It's not a feature they have. I mean, it doesn't sound like a big thing, but it is when you have to sit down and you have to log in, you have to go ahead and punch in another whole number to be able to pull up a bill, when for 12 or 15 years, we've been able to just very simply take care of those things. And it's just, it seems like the upgrade doesn't seem to have the level of detail that we'd like. And it just, there's no budget, there's no budget module to it. So I mean, that's not gonna assist us with that. It's basically putting in the final number like we do now, which I think we could do a better job of being precise, more precise in our budgeting and in our tracking. The reporting is more robust. Can you think of anything else? I'm kind of going off the top
Here, I'll
of my
go
head.
off what you have there. So your account structure stays the same.
Yes,
Your accounts payable with your vendors, your W-9s, all that, that stays the same.
yes.
Your-
The other,
I'll just go through it all. Your human resource suite, you still have the ability for personnel management with codes classification. Can you currently put job classifications in the system?
I don't think we use it. If we do,
Okay.
like job classifications, I don't believe so.
Rate tables, positions, locations, assignment,
No.
5 years of payroll history.
No,
That's what
only
your-
2 is what they're saying.
That's what your proposal says.
Well, that's the proposal from a different company.
You know why that's good? That's good when you have leap year, because leap year changes your payroll structure with your frequency.
Right. The other thing that we're finding with G-Works is like, okay, we were excited that there might be a time clock system that we would be able to use, and we've been told that I think with any of them, we'll need to change the way that we do our payroll, but that was a disappointment.
Do they offer an app process, which is the modern thing for time clock keeping?
They do, but we have to make some major changes on
Wi-Fi?
our end, and as far as how we pay.
Does your utility ability change? You have a lot of information that you would collect on meters to services to account history. This gives you like 5 years. Would you have 5 years under G-Works?
No.
Are you able to manage your vendors if they're inactive or active in the current system?
In the current system, yes, we can do that.
How about your different rate structures that you can put in there?
Well, we found that that's been a limiting factor in the past with Simple Cities, and we didn't see a lot of change with G-Works, I don't believe.
Do we use a work order system?
We don't.
This one has one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just want to see if we're getting apples to apples or we're changing things up.
Well, I think the BSNA product would be an improvement. There are other softwares out there. I think at this point, it would just be a matter of beginning that process of figuring out which one and letting our current vendor know that we're no longer going to continue to move on implementation of a new software with them, that we're going to go a different direction. The one thing about the one I did provide to you is that they've switched over 20 communities this year from the G-Works product or from Simple Cities to their product.
So Plano is one of these communities that has the BSA product, I believe.
Yes.
So the current park district in our community and the school run off the same financial software because they can back each other up.
Yes.
Would this do the same if we had to get help from Plano?
I would assume so, yes. And actually, the communities that use BSNA, the other fact that I found really interesting is they've been in business 35 years. They said they've had 4 customers leave in 35 years. So people seem to be pretty happy with that product. I used it in my past life, but that's not the reason that I'm suggesting it. It's just we've looked at it, and it's kind of in the middle area for price, but and for the things that it does.
So we always thought change the software would cost us at least $100,000. This is $92,090.
Well, there will be some more cost to that because if they come out, there's a section in there for, we have to put them up in a hotel and those types of things, but we would try to manage that as closely as we could.
That's what I'm saying. The cheapest thing is to go to Plano that somebody already uses your software system, have you just teach you how to use it without bringing somebody in.
Well,
There's a
but
lot
it's
of
also
these-
configuration, I think, is the other big
Right,
part
right,
of it,
and
is to make
setup,
sure that it's
yeah.
configured properly.
Okay. All right, what does council feel about this? Currently, I have what, us and one other municipality has the current software in Illinois?
We did find also that the support with G-Works, even through this process, has been a real problem. One of the things that BSNA does really well is their support and being able to have somebody available all the time.
Okay. Questions from council?
Go ahead.
The one question I have is, I mean, given the fact that Plano uses this software, have we gone over and sat with them? And like, I think that would be something that we should probably do and see what the capabilities are of the product. I'm sure Marty would be willing to let you come over, Angie, and even the others in the office there, just to see how it works and then see what they wish that system did that it currently doesn't do, I know that we've talked about Kendall County has the Munis software and that sort of thing. That's a Tyler product. That might be another avenue to go to as well. I have a tad bit of apprehension just going to something because it's new and it's there. I want to make sure that's what best fits us, So maybe even putting together an RFP, to say, hey, give us proposals of what you're capable of doing. This is what we have. This is where we want to be. I think you're going to end up having to get like a NovaTime, a Kronos or something like that for time management system, if you want to go that way. But we had the money in the budget.
You have to see if those integrate too.
Right. We had the money in the budget. Kronos typically doesn't integrate. They don't
ADP,
change things.
you think it works?
ADP, yeah, but ADP does the backside of it, right?
Depends.
So I just think that going over, looking at it, seeing how they enter stuff, see how it works, would be extremely beneficial.
And just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we only go with that one. That's the only
Yeah,
one
no,
we
I
demoed
gotcha.
at this
I
point.
gotcha.
I just want to make sure that the council's in agreement that we don't think that we should continue down this path of trying to implement something that we don't think is going to work long-term. And that this is going to have to be a discussion during budget, that we're going to have to allocate the dollars to do it. They're saying with a program like BSNA, they're saying it's a 9-month implementation process. It just depends on, I would expect the others would be very similar from the research that I've done.
So what did we pay for the upgrade?
Nothing other than they raised our annual fee because they said that the existing software is going away, so they needed to charge us more because there's fewer people on it. And so they weren't going to charge us to upgrade to the new system, and that's why we figured we'd try it, is that, there wasn't going to be an additional fee to it. What's interesting is that in the example of the one we demoed, the annual fee is actually less than what our annual fee is for this one. But the problem is there's another $80,000 in trying to get it upgraded, installed and configured properly.
Other questions or comments?
I just want to say that I kind of agree with Fred. Test driving the car before buying it sounds a lot more reasonable than just diving in.
Go see their senior accountant. I think he knows
But
the system.
we agree that the system doesn't work and we need to do something differently. I mean, we've been dumping money into the budget, and I was just looking here. There was something budgeted, correct?
I think we did
budget
budget
it.
it the past 2 years and didn't do anything.
Correct.
And then this year we didn't put it back in. But I think we had done 60,000 the last 2 years. So that's why I'm saying I think we need to seriously look at this during the budget process, see if there's a way we can get it done. And just want to kind of give everybody a heads up that it's not a cheap endeavor, but I think it's an investment into the way that we operate and being able to get some efficiency and help us with some of these
Yep.
things.
I mean, what we risk with something like G-Works only has like 2 Illinois customers is, one is your customer service diminishes, the product stays the status quo, and then the other part of that is then there's always a risk for them to sell or buy out or just simply close their business, and then you're in trouble.
Well, and I believe that's actually what has happened. The Simple City product was standalone. I believe it was purchased by G-Works, and then they have kind of looked to phase that out and move into something different, so.
Okay. All right, let's have you go visit Plano and report back, and Fred will look at the budget and we'll figure out where we can go from there. All right, Angie, draft levy for 2025 payable in 2026.
All right, good evening. You should, I only need one, I think. Okay. You should have gotten a couple of things in your packet to go over. I did kind of put together a presentation to go along with those for you as well. Some of you are a little bit newer to the tax levy process, so I just wanted to kind of go over a little bit to start. The levy is prepared in order to determine what amount of property taxes can be collected by local units of government. It's based on the EAV and obtained from two different counties. We're in DeKalb and Kendall, so we obtain those from both counties. It is crucial to our funding, and it makes up about 25% of our government funds. Can you go ahead? One more. All right. The city of Sandwich is also a non-home rule community, so we are subject to the property tax extension limitation law, so PTEL, and that is designed to limit the yearly increase in property tax extensions. The restriction limits the city to inflationary increase plus the additional amount for new construction. The increase in PTEL are limited to the lesser of the 5% or the increase in CPI. This year, CPI is 2.9%. Okay, go ahead. This shows you the history of the CPI over the last few years. A couple years ago, it was at 5%. So again, this year, we're at 2.9%. Okay, thank you. All right. This shows the history of the EAV. For this year, it is an estimated number provided by both counties. Using that rate, looks like 10.53% over 2024. Increase in that. All right. And the limiting rate is what I have figured to determine the maximum real estate tax levy each year based on that. Okay, sorry. So the maximum increase for this year is limited to 4.68% and also would amount to $87,196,000 in additional revenue. And this is kind of a breakdown of that amount, the 4.68 allocated to those different areas. You can, no, stay back on that. You can see that the police pension does make up the largest percentage of our levy. It's about just under 50% of our actual levy goes to the police pension. With that, this year's increase would be $974,000. That is the recommendation. So we would increase it to that. Okay, and based on the 2024 rates, this kind of breaks down where a typical homeowner's property tax would amount to. The city is about 10.9% of the total tax, and your school district for education makes up about 59% of that. Okay. And then using that information, the typical homeowner that has not had their home reassessed would actually see a decrease in their property tax. However, given with the increase in EAV, most homeowners may have had a reassessment, and they would potentially see an increase of $26 if your home was reassessed at that. All right, so in summary there, the recommendation is for the levy at 2.9% plus the new growth for a total levy of $1,948,938 at 4.68% with additional revenue of $87,196.
Okay, questions for Angie on the levy?
Thanks for putting that together. The police pension, when you talked about that 974,000, that's what the actuarials are
Yes.
saying
Yes.
to stay with, to stay afloat, right?
Yes.
That's not the minimum.
That's not the
So
minimum.
that's what we've worked hard
Yes.
to try to get that debt
We've
brought down.
overfunded it for.
What's that?
We've overfunded it for the last couple of years.
Yeah, so we've been following the actuarial numbers to try to get that number more affordable in the long term. And now, given when we have an officer who's planning on retiring, that's gonna end up impacting that, and that's gonna increase that number even more moving forward.
I believe it's currently at 49%.
Yes, that's correct. We are 49% funded as well.
Hey, Rich, Mr. Goodlow sends me a letter, Rich from the pension. Do you know if he's sent that letter? Usually the pension sends one to us. Could you find out if he's, usually that kind of gets here 2 days after I do the levy and sign it. So, I'd like to get it a little sooner just to see what the pension's asking for. Right, we haven't got a letter from them yet.
Yeah,
Did he send a letter?
I did, yes.
And I
So-
think the other thing, sorry,
Oh.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, we did receive the final report from them. Is that what you're referring
He
to?
usually sends me a letter that just indicates like what they believe the levy should be from the pension side of it.
Okay.
But by then, we're usually done, so.
So I did get that from their recommended contribution based off of that report, and that's where I got that figure. And then they do, like you said, Fred, include a minimum amount there as well.
Right.
so.
And then we grew by $4.2 million in our assist evaluation, so I think that's very nice to see. I know next door it was a lot less than that, so we grew very well with everything going up there in Fairwinds and so forth. And that next round, I think they already have 8 lots sold or 10 lots sold, so they're gonna start building more out there.
Angie, did you have a slide of new construction in here? What are new constructions estimated at?
The new construction, I think, was,
And then maybe like adding what it was last year, so we can just kind of see what the,
new construction was $4,251,379.
was that on one of the slides though?
I think
Go
it's
up
on
to
your-
slide 44,
it's
which
a-
is actually the levy review.
Yeah, it's on one of your sheets in your packet, the review page.
I think if it's not in the presentation, we need to add it when we get to
Keep
the
going.
hearing.
It's there.
Right there. Nope, sorry, keep going. It's right after the
This, it's
BS
on
and
this.
A, right
Yeah,
there.
Right there, yes.
It's kind of small.
But I don't think that's in the presentation, right?
No, not separately.
Yeah, so could we add that just so
Sure.
when we have people here that may want to give testimony, when we have the hearing, they can see what the growth is as well? I think it's a good thing to point out.
And those are estimated numbers from both counties still at this point.
Yeah, that Kendall one seems a little low, because I think there were 2 or 3 houses built over by me, so.
Depends on the timing, Fred.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, other questions? All right, thank you, Angie. Item E is draft ordinance amending section 86 of the Utility City of Sandwich Municipal Code for water billing procedures. Whose item's that?
Multiple.
I think there were a number of people that discussed it, and I think there's a number of things to address there. The core thing is some of the discussion we've had over the last 3 years of trying to make landlords responsible for the actual bills rather than putting them in the tenant's name, because that's where we're running into a lot of problems with people who, because we bill quarterly, sometimes we don't know right away when people have left. So by the time we send a bill, there's nobody to send it to, and we have no forwarding address. So and Denise can probably discuss this. She's much more familiar with it than I am, but it's one of those things that we need to seriously consider, just because it seems like and part of the process too, as Cassandra will speak to, is that we've been very kind in the way that we do things. Somebody calls up and says, hey, I'm switching my water, can you turn it on? And we work with it, but we've taken that over the phone, and some of that stuff we need to make sure that we're getting more formalized as to what we're getting and how we're going about that. I'll let you talk a little more.
Okay, so I think, again, there are kind of a couple different issues I'm trying to address with this. So one is having an actual application for the water service. So that way we have that information before the collector to get that information. In addition, there could be, if you wanted, and I think I have it in here as reserved, you could use a security deposit. That is something that a lot of municipalities do. But essentially, what it really comes down to is, and many municipalities are going in this direction, is having the water bill in the name of the same entity or person that is on the tax bill. And so that person is the person that is legally responsible for the property, and that way Denise will be able to follow up with that person, especially since it sounds like a lot of the issue is with tenants moving out. I know another issue is when people move. And so I didn't know how far the city wanted to go with that, so I haven't dived too far into that, because my understanding was there was some consensus about wanting to make sure that water bills were in landlord names. So I've gone to that, but to address some of the issues with people moving and never knowing about that, there are other municipalities that put in place a requirement for a final read, and then the final read bill goes to the title company. So it's, one of the things is that we can't implement a real estate transfer stamp because we're not home rule. But this is in a way, kind of a way to accomplish some of the same things without, I mean, I don't believe that most municipalities charge a fee necessarily. And if they do, it's a small fee, whereas, you know, Sycamore, their transfer stamp is very high, right? So it's not intended to be a revenue maker necessarily, but a communication tool for the city to know about those things. So I'm not sure if anyone has any questions, but in kind of this go-around, the main goal was to have it be in the legal owner's name and have them be the ones responsible for the bill.
So do all these items sound like a direction that we want to go for an ordinance to be prepared so we can vote on it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately in the end, the onus of the water bill all around needs to be on the homeowner, whether they have a rental in there, because the renter can move out in the middle of the night. And like Fred talked about, our water is a utility. And if we can't keep that utility maintained and paid, ultimately in the end, it belongs to that home. And if a renter moves out in the middle of the night, that's on the landlord's issue. But the bill still needs to be paid to the city because the water was used. So I think we need to be looking out, because the more money we have coming into that account, the less we're looking at going, hey, we don't have the money and we need to raise water rates. So we need to make sure we're fully getting all our money back.
I think another benefit of this is making it just a little bit more transparent. The issues that you run into if a tenant is the one that skips out on the bill and then you lien the property owner is mad about that because they're not the one that did it. In addition, the property owner generally is going to have the legal recourse against the tenant because they should have a lease that will make them responsible for various payments that the city isn't necessarily going to have to be able to take recourse against a tenant. So this will also hopefully really kind of just make everything very clear. And it's the owner, and then the owner can, you know, work out with the tenant. You know, you make payments and it's additional rent essentially. So like I said, I know a lot of municipalities that do this, and it just, is helping make things easier.
Okay, other thoughts or comments? Okay, then we'll move forward, Orin, so we can bring the council at the next meeting for consideration and possible vote. All right, item F is the discussion review of the professional service agreement with Hampton, Lenzini, and Renwick for construction engineering services for Pratt Road Bridge. So you received a document showing the request for qualifications that went out. I believe there were 2 engineering firms considered. Jeff, do you want to talk about how we got to the one that we have, and how council can be informed of the recommendation?
Sure. Nick and I each went through the rubric, read the proposals, and rated them based on the proposals. And we found that Hampton, Lenzini, and Renwick were, they ranked higher in our opinion than the other one. It has helped that HLR has been working on Main Street. They're in a different place than they were last year, and we think we've got some pretty good momentum with them. They also did all the design work on this project. So we felt like their familiarity with it seemed to make good sense for this this Pratt Road Bridge project, which is supposed to be let, I believe, in the next week or two, and potentially to begin as soon as January.
Okay, so then we'll be moving to council if there's no other questions for your consideration. All right, on to G. This is discussion on the ordinance 2025-08, ordinance amending chapter 98 zoning, article 5 supplement regulations, section 98-145, which is the airport area development of the city of Sandwich. All right, Jeff, you want that one too?
I'll let Cassandra go with it.
All right, attorney?
So I'm not sure if the packet has the image or not.
I don't believe we put the image in.
Okay, so Jeff and I spent some time looking at this, and I think that I definitely understand what the council is trying to accomplish here, but we can't necessarily just make an area where there is a special use requirement, but like dividing that parcel up like that. And so the other thing to note is that if you look at the southern portion of it, I think if you look where that blue line is, on the other side of that shed kind of thing, on the right, go up, Jeff, sorry, with your point.
Right
Yeah,
here.
so right there, that's actually where the city line kind of ends. So we can't really control between the purple and blue line, more or less. So our thought process, what I'm proposing would be either in a designated land area overlay district, or in truth, the most simplistic option would be to do a text amendment and to change the zoning to that parcel. So I think that based on what's over there, technically, most of what would probably go over there would be a B2, but the thought process would be to either make it a B1 or a B2, and then there's a little bit more regulation for the city to have with regard to what goes there. So that would be the simplest way, because there's not really a way to only make, I guess, between the purple, the bottom purple and the top blue, to only regulate that portion.
Okay, questions from council on what's being proposed? Rich?
Well, going back to what the original intent was, which is the height, when you're talking about gives us more control, so it gives us more control as far as the height, you're saying?
No, I mean, the height's already taken care of,
No,
more or less.
But it's not, and that's why we wanted a special use, because we want to make sure that somebody doesn't build something that they're not supposed to. That's been the conversation the whole time. Am I wrong?
Right, because we could actually, if we issue the permit, we could have somebody build something there, but that's going to then affect the landing area negatively. And that's why this was initially put into we believe that's why it was originally put into the municipal code, was to try to have a protection so that we didn't accidentally do that. So, that was kind of the core of the initial part of it, was to make sure that we didn't build something larger or approve something larger than what should be there. Now, through the process, we established what the heights would be based on the designated landing area that's there. At the end of, when the motion was made for all this, it was asked that there be a special use that is attached to that parcel or to that area, but we needed to define that. We defined it as between the two blue lines. Now what we're finding is that where that purple line is up there is the end of the city limits. So then we would be trying to restrict property that's outside of the city limits. So that's the reason that we kind of talked about maybe just making it a zoning change. We would still have a special use that came back. It would have to go to the Plan Commission in order to make it something other than a B1, or excuse me, yeah, B1. Right?
Yeah, whatever the council would want.
B1 or B2. And that way, at least it's coming to the Plan Commission so that there is some check as to what goes in there.
I think when we talked about the blue, in between the blue, we were just trying to do it as simple as possible.
Absolutely.
But like you said, I don't think, it doesn't make any difference to me as long as we're protecting the entire subdivision by having that one area or that one lot where we've got some control over somebody building something too tall, and now everybody that's got an airport, or everyone that's got an airplane out there.
It's no good. Right.
Correct.
I totally agree.
So I think that rolls us down into H. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So the proposal is for H, that's our discussion of rezoning the parcels on the Gletter Road, Church Street area from B3 to B1. And that'll be just a change then that will come before so change the zoning and then have better control through the special use process.
And so that would require staff to file a petition, would require a public hearing before the Plan Commission. But I guess based on what we understand, regardless, no matter what, if you wanted to do an overlay district or however you wanted to do this, it would need to have a hearing before the Plan Commission. So I guess what we're wanting to see is if there was a specific direction the council was looking to go in.
And how does this impact the property owner then?
It would change the zoning in this instance to a B1. And at least then we've got a path forward is really what we wanted to be able to give these people.
And have we had dialogue with them on this?
We've been on back and forth
Okay.
with them, yes.
And is it the
Well,
thought
we need to
process?
talk to them.
Okay.
We've been back and forth a number
Okay.
of times. We didn't talk with them most recently about the zoning change, but it's one of those things that seems to be the most concise way to be able to accommodate the request from the council to have a special use for that property.
Or would the other way be to talk to the county about extending what we initially wanted to do further to the east?
To the east or to the south?
Well, you're
Let me
talking about the
pull it
blue
back.
line
Yeah,
going to the east, right? That the city limits stop at the purple,
correct. So we'd have to,
continue it
It's-
south
Yeah,
and east.
southeast, yeah.
Because is the purple line represent the city limits? No.
Yes.
It's the blue, right?
no, it's the purple line.
Okay,
That's the
sorry.
city limits. And that's where the issue is that the city limits are here because that's the edge of that property.
I just want to make sure the property owners are all informed of what the implications might be.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's the only fair thing to say, is that this would be the
Absolutely.
right
and
approach
Yeah.
in my mind.
We're probably looking at a December Plan Commission meeting, so we'll have to go through that.
So I guess maybe between now and the timeframe before we need to publish, we try to have a conversation with the property owner to determine what their thoughts are on this.
Okay.
Jeff, do you need Angie still? Can you let her
No,
leave?
she can go.
Okay.
Sorry, Angie. Thought you were enjoying the conversation.
She kind of looked at me like, there's nothing else on the agenda for me. This is all nice, but late. All right, so we're gonna go back to the property owner, and then we'll see about moving that to our planning commission. If we need to file the petition, then we'll do that. And the next item is H, that's discussed on the elimination of the 40-acre minimum lot for an ag zoning. So that was part of the county's countywide plan to have 40 acres as a minimum to slow growth. And so I assume we need to have a conversation about that as it pertains to agricultural zoning. So Jeff, what do you have on that topic?
Well, this kind of came in conjunction with
Jay?
the next item, yes. We had an annexation request, and part of the issue is that the property currently is in DeKalb County and zoned ag. But because of the size of the property, a lot of it was sold off for the, for Fairwinds Boulevard and for some of the Fairwinds development, and now it's only I believe it's like 3 acres. So in DeKalb County, you need to have a minimum of 40 acres, and up to 5 of it can be used for a structure. So by the way those zoning rules work, they can't maintain an ag designation and still maintain it and build a new home there. So they had requested to be able to come into the city, but in order to do that, we were looking at our own code, and sure enough, we've got a 40-acre minimum as well in order for it to be ag. Now, in this case, we believe that they're going to want to try and annex and to come in as an R1, but at the same time, it doesn't make sense to keep things on the books that are probably not going to make sense going forward. So that's why that's on here for discussion.
I mean, wouldn't we want them to come in R1 anyway?
Yes.
And so I guess, so there's a couple different things with our code. And I actually talked to my partners about this, and they're all very surprised to see that an incorporated municipality maintaining that 40-acre, because that is very typical in a lot of the counties. It's very, very typical in DeKalb County. And there are a couple other counties that do that. But so the idea is that if you want to cut off a portion, it has to be a minimum of 5 acres, and then you have to designate another 35 acres that you will not absolutely improve. And so this individual's thought process was, well, then I'll annex into the city. Great, fine. But so first, our code says, and this would be voluntary, so it could be a quick passage of an ordinance. But our code says that any land that is currently designated as agriculture that's annexed shall be annexed as ag. And so there would probably have to be an annexation agreement to change that and have it come in as R1, because that is what they would like to do. But it just brought along this other portion that wouldn't necessarily need to happen if we were to allow them to build a living structure on the property, even though it is less than 40 acres. So it's kind of up to the council on which way we want to go. Like I said, this isn't necessarily common in a city, because you don't necessarily expect to have 40 acres of farmland in a city. But I think I looked, this is back from
I think the school district does.
2002.
They do.
What, they want to have?
No, they
Oh,
have
no.
over 40 acres of
Oh.
land in the city.
Yeah. So
So can we just consider the R1 with non-conforming use, or what are options with the property since it already has a structure that I assume they don't want to tear down?
I guess I don't know. Are they going to tear it down?
I don't know.
I don't recall that they actually, and just know that they want to build a new house on the property.
Everyone know where the property is we're talking about?
I mean, no.
Right.
I don't remember where.
So I think we can handle H. I think we can handle J separately. Do we want to look at I and see how that would impact some of our long-term planning and see if there's is there a more appropriate size that you've seen, like 5 acres? Those are like mini
I
farms?
mean, in
or
a municipality, I usually don't
See it at all?
see that at all.
But that, it's for agricultural, so
Be your grow farm,
could be.
not your grow farm, a grow farm. I don't know. I don't know what else you'd put on the agriculture like that.
I don't
That would
know.
be in the city.
Well, and that's the thing, right?
I'm just saying, maybe we should see what the alternatives might be. Bill, would you like to come up and make a statement as the chair of our planning commission? Do I have to put Bill under oath? I'm just kidding.
No,
Usually you do that for
not
everybody
right now.
else.
I think you said, this goes back to 2002?
Yes.
Okay, that was because we had an individual farmer who wanted to annex to Sandwich before Plano got them. And so we created an ag district for the first time. I don't know any other municipality that has agricultural zoning. That was the reason for this.
Would
So-
you agree that it's
Should be
probably
removed.
not necessary anymore?
It was a unique situation, so yes.
I-
And I would think that, yes, I would think so. The reason that we created the ag zoning, though, was for tax purposes, property tax purposes, and also he did not want to develop any property. He just wanted not to be annexed into Plano.
I appreciate that because when I had this discussion with my partners, they didn't believe that this was in your code. And so I had to physically pull it up to show them that this was in your code. So I
Okay.
appreciate that it's a very unique situation.
So your recommendation would be to move H to the planning commission?
H, well, assuming
Rezoning.
we're looking at the right. Yes, H.
From B3 to B1,
Yes.
right? That will need a petition
Well-
to hearing,
Assuming we have a productive conversation with the
property owner.
property owner, yes.
I would go back to them for elimination of that.
That would
part of the code.
require a public hearing as well.
And then last is J, there would be a public hearing for the annexation request, which it sounds like we'd like it to come in as R1, but we need to find out what their plans are with their existing structure.
Yes.
Okay,
So
does council object to moving those 3 items to the planning commission?
Sounds good.
yeah, I think the way we looked at it, kind of all these things kind of worked out that we can give the planning commission quite a few things to take care of in December, all at once.
You good for that, Bill? Sounds like a plan? Yes. Okay. Reports of other persons, Alderman Arnett.
I just want to bring up, piggyback on something I was talking about last week when we talked about the $308,000 for the water treatment building. Like I said last week, I'd like to see us start doing a lot more requests for professional services when we have residents calling us and saying, well, what did somebody else come in at as far as quote? We can't tell them that. I think we need to be a lot more financially transparent with our residents, and we can't do it with the way we're currently doing things. If we had a gas station here in town, Casey's, if they were only a gas station in 50 miles, I don't think Casey's would be charging us the lowest possible dollar available. So we need to be able to prove to our residents that we're doing our due diligence and saying, okay, we looked at this, we looked at this, we looked at this, and these are the reasons we did this. But right now, we can't do that because we don't do requests for professional at all. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Alderman Chun,
I don't have anything at this time.
Alderwoman Erickson,
Nothing right now, thank you.
Alderwoman Edmond,
Nothing right now, thank you.
Alderman Cranbrink,
Nothing further, sir.
Alderman Robinson.
Nothing tonight.
All right, we have any announcements, Jeff?
No.
Anyone for audience comments? Okay, motion to adjourn from the committee of the whole
Yes.
meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Chun. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Those opposed? All right, quick break and we'll come back with the regular meeting.